I want to talk to you today about how to boost your Google ranking, specifically in 2020, because they've done some new updates. So first, let's talk about why should you care about Google ranking. So Google ranks the results of any search query. So if you type in, cute videos of puppies, it's going to rank all the different videos and options on Google that they've indexed and decide, okay, what is going to be most relevant to this person's question. So one reason to really care about this is if people are looking for your services, they're not typically going to go past that first page of search results, right? I don't know about you, but I cannot remember the last time I clicked page 2, 3, or beyond of Google, right? So most people are going to look at that first page, and most of the time they're really not even going to scroll all the way to the bottom. So when you can improve your ranking, you're more likely to be on the first page of these different results, and the higher you can rank, the more likely people are to click on your link, which is going to be really important to convert sales and to get new clients. Also, the higher you rank, the more trusted you are, and people are more likely to click on that, because we all know, whether we fully understand it or not, Google likes to make sure that they rank the things that are important. We see this a lot, especially with the pandemic recently. Basically, every platform out there redid their algorithm to make sure that they were ranking reputable sources for content. And Google has really been trying to do that for a long time. So the authority that you have has a big impact on where Google ranks you. So we kind of, in some ways, whether we realize it or not, trust the things that rank higher on Google than those that are on like page 10. I know for me, at least, I'm not going to hire or go to the doctor that's on page 10 of Google results when there's, someone listed, a bunch of people listed on that first page. And the other thing too is you don't have to pay anything to boost your ranking. So there's things that you can do on your own that you don't have to pay for. So it's not an ad. I mean, you can do Google ads, and that will definitely get you on that first page. But all the things we're going to talk about today, these are things you can do on your own unless you hire someone to do it, right? So if you hire someone to make these changes for you, then it'll cost you something. But the actual process of updating this content to help you rank better on Google is not going to cost you anything but time, which I know is still very, very valuable. But we're going to talk a little bit about some simple things that you can do even today and this week to make sure that you are improving your Google rank. And the big thing to know too is it does take time. So don't think that you can implement these things and automatically you'll be number one on that search. It's going to take some time and a lot of thought and effort, but these are a great place to start, especially if you're starting a new website or updating yours. Doing this while you're in the process of that is going to help you a lot. So let's talk about it. So what does Google rank? How does Google rank your content? What do they look at? So they are always going to prioritize the user. So the person who's asking the question, that's who they really want to help get the right information, right? So it's going to evaluate your content based on a few different things. How closely it relates to the meaning of the query. So it could be, I don't know if you guys have seen this on Google recently, but I'll type something in and it's totally off and they're like, do you mean this? And so they'll kind of do that already with your content as well. They'll look at the context of your information and see, okay, does this fit what this person's really asking for? Is this going to be helpful? All that fun stuff. They'll look at the relevance, and so that's similar to the meaning, but it goes a little bit more in depth of, okay, how relevant is this content to what's being asked? Is it the newest content? Is it looking at a specific date? All of that information they're going to take into account. They're going to look at the quality of the content. So, how many errors do you have on it? How quickly does it load? Is it legible? Is it authoritative? All of that information. And then it's going to look at the usability of web pages. So it's going to think again about the user and say, okay, is this set up well for someone to be happy that they clicked into this site, essentially? Because Google doesn't want to send people information that they're going to hate or be upset with, right? And then lastly, they're going to look at the context and the settings. So it's more so, okay, what is the context of the larger searches that these people have been asking for? For example, the other day I was comparing different software and I searched one and then I didn't do like versus this. I searched them separately and they offered, do you want to compare these two? And I was like, yes, I do. Kind of creepy that you knew that, but that's the information that they're looking at. So even information like that can be really helpful. That is what Google does and looks at to make sure that they're giving the best content for what's being asked. So here's how you want to kind of think about that. Think about what's most relevant to a question, how user-friendly is your content, and does it match the context of the query? What is it that they're asking, and how easy is it for them to get that answer from what you're creating? All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the 3 things that you can do to improve your ranking. So these are really simple. 1, make it mobile friendly. So many people are using Google or any search engine on their phone. If you don't have a mobile friendly site, you are missing out. 2, update your on-page SEO. I'll go a little bit more into this, and I've done some previous webinars on that, so I will make sure to link those in the follow-up email. But make sure you're updating your website regularly and looking at the latest in SEO best practices. There's a few tools that you can use to do that, and I'll talk about that later in this seminar. And then thirdly, create relevant content and use keywords. So whether it's updating the copy on your website, or if you're writing a blog or sharing a video, using keywords and keeping it relevant to what's going on today in the world or about your industry is going to be really, really important. You know, people that maybe want to, like, for example, people who want to know about, you know, the latest things going on with COVID are not going to be interested in necessarily the, like, gosh, I'm trying to think of something, like Alexander the Great. That's just like not relevant, right? So if you're trying to match for COVID information, creating something about Alexander the Great is not going to help you at all. So that's like a very extreme example, but things like that, keep that in mind. All right, making it mobile friendly. This seems like it should be super easy, but it's not always. So 63% of Google's US organic search traffic comes from mobile devices. And so making your site mobile friendly will really help to improve your website's usability, and that in turn promotes and improves your search results. And this is something that Google recently rolled out in some of their latest core updates to their algorithm, is that they're really promoting and harping on how user-friendly and mobile friendly your content is. So if your site is not mobile friendly, they're not going to rank it as highly. So when it comes to things like WordPress, Squarespace, or Wix, which are typically the platforms that most of my clients are using and you might be using for your website, this is going to look really, really different. So WordPress, honestly, it is so dependent upon what template you're using. And if you are creating a brand new site, or if you're updating your current site with a new template, make sure you're looking for either the terms mobile friendly or responsive design. So those are the 2 keywords that you want to look for. And if it doesn't have those, then don't get it, because it means it's not going to automatically transition to these different screen sizes. And that is, you know, going to hurt you. So making sure that your site is mobile friendly is really important, and you need to make sure you're doing the research on what that means. Also looking at how that template uses that uses that responsive design is really important. So for some templates, for example, a client that I'm working with, her mobile site has to be updated essentially as a separate portion of that web page. So I go on, I edit the web page, and I basically have 2 copies of it. And anytime I change content on either of those 2 pages, I have to do it for both. Otherwise, it's going to keep this, you know, old content from before. And I have to adjust all the settings, and it's kind of a pain in the butt, to be honest, but I'm happy to do it. But it's one of those things, you know, as a small business owner, that's not something you really want to have to do. And it definitely adds to your cost, whether it's your time or the amount of money you have to pay someone else to do it for you. It's just going to add some more time there. It's not always like the most insane thing, depending upon how much information you're changing on a regular basis, but it definitely adds a few extra steps. So make sure you're researching that if you're using WordPress. And then with Squarespace and Wix, those typically, as most other platforms, are going to be automatically responsive. So for example, my site is on Squarespace. If you go to westfalldigitalstrategies.com on your phone, you're going to see it and it'll automatically switch it. So whenever I put content in, I don't have to worry about that. Now, something I do have to think through, though, is because it's responsive and it is essentially changing the way the content is going to be presented on that smaller device, I want to make sure I go in and see what it'll look like and how it sets it up. So if there's certain things that I'm creating that need to be in a specific order, or would look weird if it was, switched around, I need to make sure I'm looking at that. So when I update my site, I often will look at it on my desktop and on my phone. And then they also have like a preview of it, your phone on there, which I also will look at, but I like to look at it on my actual device. And so looking at all of those different pieces will be really important, and making sure you understand what your platform does, and how you're going to adjust it. So that's really, really simple. As far as like once you figure out exactly how to do it, it's really easy to do, and definitely something that you want to make sure you're always checking. All right, the next one, I'm talking about on-page SEO. So this is pretty much any of the basic SEO questions or problems that Google sees on your site. So it could be your headings, your meta descriptions, word count, backlinks, images, all of those have an impact on your search engine optimization or SEO. And so Google looks at those to determine how they want to rank your content. So the better you perform with these issues, the better you'll perform on Google. So I use Ubersuggest to update this, and for all of my website audits. It's a really simple tool, and it's honestly free. And so you can go and look at it and see what you need to update, and then make those updates yourself. Something to note though is depending upon how big your website is, and the last time you updated it, it might take you a few hours to get all these updates created, especially if you have to add words because the word count is low. And a low word count would be a page with less than 300 words, which currently some of my web pages actually have that. And so I'm working on updating my copy to include more words, but specifically looking at keywords and making sure that I'm not just adding fluff. So you always want it to be valuable information. You don't want to just stuff your pages for no good reason. So definitely taking the time to audit your website, or having someone audit it for you. That's something I do for my clients often. And it's just a really simple and easy thing to do when you have the time, but obviously having the time is half the battle. So taking the time to go through and update that, especially on a regular basis, is really important. I like to go into Ubersuggest and run this search where they basically scour my website as if it were a Google bot, and they say, okay, here are all the pain points, here are all the issues, and here's how you fix them. I do that about once a month, and try to update it as best I can, especially because I update my content on a regular basis. So if you're updating regularly, or if you haven't looked at it in a while, definitely go in and check out how your site is performing. All right, the third thing is creating relevant content and using keywords. So the first thing you're going to do is pick your keywords. And so the way that you want to do that is think about how many people ask you the same question, right? So what are the top questions people are asking you? What are the biggest pain points people are coming to you for? And what language are they using to talk about that? So for example, some people will use digital marketing when they're talking to me, or they'll say web design or social media marketing or email marketing. They'll get very specific. So I know that all of those need to be keywords for me, but they may not use more kind of jargon kind of language. So, they might not be looking for hashtags, but they want help with hashtags. They might not be looking for meta descriptions, but they want help with SEO. So understanding what it is people are asking and looking for informs the words that I pick. And then I do some research as well on what's trending on Google, what kind of questions are currently being asked, all that information. And there's a lot of different tools that you can use to research that. I like to use the free tools that Google offers. So they have the Google Keyword Planner within Google Ads. They have Google Trends. And then Ubersuggest also has a free keyword suggesting option as well. So checking those out can be really helpful. Then you want to create your content. So whether this is a video or a blog, or even just the landing pages that you're creating for something that you're offering, making sure you're using your keywords in those landing pages and in that copy is going to really help you to boost your site as well. So talking about, answering those questions. Maybe you have an FAQ page that you didn't know you needed. That is a great piece of content that you could update. If you are writing blogs regularly, think about how you want that blog to be ranked for specific keywords. So if I'm writing a blog about SEO, I'm going to be thinking about what are the common words and keywords that I want to use naturally in my content that's going to help me rank higher as people are looking for that information. And then you want to share your content. So whether it's sharing it through your email, whether it is sharing it on social, all of that content, you want to share it because as you share it, it creates backlinks, which is going to help Google to say, okay, these people know what they're talking about because this content is being shared. And the more people share it, the more authority you get with Google. And that really helps your ranking as well. They want to make sure that they're delivering the right information, accurate information, real information that can be trusted to the people who are searching. And so the more backlinks that you have that are legitimate, that's really going to help you as well with Google. So picking those keywords, creating your content and using those keywords in it, and then making sure to share that content is really, really important. So these are the 3 questions I use to help find the right keywords. We kind of talked about that first one. What are the top 10 questions people are asking? Even including those questions kind of verbatim. If you have literally the same exact question being asked all the time, write it out the way you hear it the most often and use that knowing that people will probably use that same question in Google. And then what do you want people to use to find you? For example, do you want them to use terms like digital marketing, social media marketing, guru, support system? Like what is it that people want, you want people to associate with you? And then how will you create the content that you need? So if you are creating blogs or if you're creating something regularly, maybe it's a video or something like that, making sure that you're scheduling that into your week and your month to create that on a regular basis is really important. That's the hardest thing to do, honestly. So all of these things are really easy to understand in concept and even to plan to some extent, but actually doing them and executing them takes some serious discipline and time. So thinking about, okay, how will you create this content? What is it going to look like? And what is a realistic goal for you to create it? Keeping in mind that it's going to be helping your Google ranking, which will ultimately help you to generate more leads and more sales. And again, all of this is a very long-term strategy outline. So for example, I write blogs every week. And part of that is I know that over time, not only is it going to help me with SEO and Google ranking, but it also creates a lot more opportunities for me to share content, but it's not necessarily going to be a quick turnaround. So for example, I've had quite a few people who've reached out to me this past month, and it's like only halfway through the month, but recently who've said, hey, I've been, reading your content or looking at this. I'm finally ready to talk, to sit down, have a conversation. And so I'm just seeing the fruit of all of that labor. So if you're really feeling overwhelmed about the idea of creating content or even doing some of this SEO work and updating your website to rank in Google, just remember that 6 months from now, you might be getting one of your biggest clients, or maybe you'll be getting a lot of new orders. Think about that long-term strategy and use that to help motivate you when you really don't want to do the work. Because trust me, sometimes it can be really hard at the end of the day, especially after a full day of work, to sit down and think, okay, I need to work on this for myself, for my own business. So definitely taking the time to think about how you're going to actually create that content and what you need to do in your schedule to do that. All right, we are finally at that Q&A portion. So we've got about 10 minutes and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.